On August 31, 1950, a TWA Constellation ascended from Cairo into the night sky. The calm shattered as flames engulfed engine number 3. Just 4 minutes later, the burning engine ripped away from the wing. 55 souls plunged into the desert below, vanishing into a fiery scorch mark. Not one survived. How did a routine flight become a furnace of unanswered questions? TWA Flight 903 was a scheduled journey from Bombay to New York, with stops in Cairo and Rome. At the controls were seasoned Captain Fred Horn and his skilled first officer. The passenger manifest was a tapestry of lives. Polish architect Maciej Nowicki sketching plans for a future UN building. Egyptian cinema star Camellia. And Indian mathematician S.S. Pillai, his briefcase full of unpublished proofs. As the flight took off, no one knew they had less than an hour to live. Climbing through 10,000 feet, the crew reported that engine number 3 was on fire and they needed to return to Cairo. A muffled bang had echoed through the wing. Oil pressure dropped to 0, and the fire bell shrieked. The captain tried to feather the propeller to stop it, but it refused, windmilling uncontrollably. He calmly announced the return to Cairo, but the crew knew this was a desperate fight for survival over an unforgiving desert. The crew began an emergency descent as the wounded aircraft fought their control. At 2:31 a.m., the burning engine tore away from the wing, ripping out vital wiring and part of the wing's structure. The plane yawed violently to the right. Captain Horn, with immense skill, used full left rudder just to keep the plane from spiraling out of control. Now only 2,000 feet above the ground, with the desert racing below, their only option was a desperate gamble: to land the plane in the sand. Horn keyed the microphone with a final message. Cairo, TWA 903, we are going in position. Then there was only static. Air traffic controllers, relying on estimates, could only guess the location about 65 miles northwest of Cairo, in the cockpit. Horn scanned the moonlit dunes for any flat stretch of sand, repeating a pilot's mantra: fly it all the way into the crash. At 2:36 a.m., the Constellation bellied in. The port wing struck a railway sleeper, sending the plane into a pirouette as the fuel tanks erupted in a blinding flash. By dawn, a plume of smoke guided rescuers to a scene of total devastation. The fuselage was snapped in two, with only the tail stabilizer standing like a tombstone. The heat had been so intense it melted coins, and wristwatches were frozen. At 2:37 a.m., the grim task of counting began. 55 seats, 0 survivors. Identification was an agonizing process, relying on fragments like dental charts and a single engraved fountain pen. If these stories of tragedy and progress fascinate you, subscribe and hit the bell to join us as we explore the events that made modern aviation so safe. Britain's Air Accidents Investigation Branch led the probe. After sifting through the wreckage, they found the cause: a fatigue crack on an engine attachment flange. Investigators concluded this tiny crack, likely present since assembly, had slowly grown with each flight until it ruptured a pressurized oil line, sparking the fire. Immediate recommendations were issued: thicker fodgings, regular magnetic inspections, and relocating fuel lines. Every Constellation was retrofitted, and a similar failure has never happened again. The crash's impact was immense. 40,000 people mourned the actress Camellia. Architect Maciej Nowicki's UN building plans were completed by his colleagues. Indian mathematician S.S. Pillai's salvaged notes were reconstructed, and his work now underpins parts of modern number theory. Decades later, a victim's sister still keeps a jar of sand from the site, a haunting, tangible link to her lost sibling. Because of Flight 903, regulators mandated redundant fire detection loops and cockpit voice recorders on airliners. TWA pivoted to turbine engines, signaling the end of the Constellation's reign. The safety protocols we now take for granted are a direct result of this tragedy, with the lessons learned written in the ashes of the Egyptian desert. 55 lives, each with a story, were ended by a flaw thinner than a hair. They did not die in vain. The crew's battle to the last second allowed investigators to learn and engineers to improve, ensuring we can fly safely today. That is their legacy, the silent contract signed between the desert and the sky. If their story moved you, share this video and let's keep their memory and the vital lessons flying